Much crazier in the world of rhetoric was AOC, who was giving a speech about global warming and decided to get misty-eyed, to start crying because she's convinced the world is about to end and she now feels that she can't be a mother.
I speak to you not as an elected official or public figure, but I speak to you as a human being, a woman whose dreams of motherhood now taste bittersweet because of what I know about our children's future, and that our actions are responsible for bringing their most dire possibilities into focus. I speak to you as a daughter and descendant of colonized peoples who have already begun to suffer.
What is she suffering? Last I checked, she's getting $300 haircuts and living in a posh apartment in Washington, D.C. and going on television all the time. What is she suffering? She said, I am suffering. I am a member of an indigenous peoples group and we are suffering. What are you suffering? What are other people suffering? There is no evidence that the world is going to end in 12 years. There's none. Not one little bit. That's not scientific. It's not even, I don't know, even to call it a religious view is not really supported by the evidence, because most religious views have some logic to them. Some have a lot of logic to them. This has no logic. None whatsoever. The worst predictions, the worst global warming predictions, are that the Earth will warm about 2 degrees over a century. There is no evidence that this will pose any problem for humans. Certainly will not pose any problems for Americans. Why is AOC worried about having children? Look, if AOC doesn't have children, I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth exactly, but in the spirit of humanity, because I am human and nothing human is alien to me, I would like AOC to feel like she is free to have children. Why doesn't she want to have children now? Because, she says, we know that they will face the direst of consequences. What's the direst of consequences? I guess death would be the direst of consequences. AOC thinks that because we drive automobiles, that in the next generation, all the children are going to die. And that's the direst of consequences, and therefore she's crying on stage. Right now, today, we kill 1 million babies a year in this country before they're born. 1 million babies every single year. We know that they face the direst of consequences. We know because it's happening right now. We don't know that in 10 years, all the children are going to die. Actually, we know that they're not going to, because there's no evidence of that whatsoever. Short of a comet, a meteor hitting the Earth, that's not going to happen. In 100 years, based on all of the available evidence, all the children aren't going to die. Right now, today, 1 million of them a year are dying. AOC doesn't shed a tear for that. AOC campaigns for it. This is either the product of a profound ignorance or insanity. And I'm actually going to give AOC the benefit of the doubt here. I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt and say that it's ignorance. Because when I was a teenager, I was pro-abortion. I didn't understand the argument for pro-life. I didn't get it. I just thought, well, they're not babies. And I just didn't think more about that because that's what I was told by the media and by educational institutions and by politicians and by everyone around me in New York. But then once you see it, you can't unsee it. And it is a baby. Shouldn't kill babies. I'm going to give AOC the benefit of the doubt. I know a lot of pro-lifers have come up to me and said, Michael, I just don't understand how anyone could support abortion. I totally do. Abby Johnson, one of the greatest pro-life advocates, worked at a Planned Parenthood because she obviously didn't see the problem with abortion. Dr. Bernard Nathanson was one of the founders of the pro-abortion movement. He was the founder of NARAL, the big abortion rights league. Now he's one of the biggest pro-life advocates. Jane Roe in Roe versus Wade is the reason why there's a so-called national right to abortion in America. She then became one of the biggest pro-life advocates in the country. Obviously, people can be fooled by the illogic of abortion and then come around and see reality. So I'm going to assume that AOC is just ignorant. Ignorant on the climate, ignorant on life, ignorant on a whole lot of things. I mean, she said in one of her first interviews that she's not the expert. Remember on the Hoover Institution show, Uncommon Knowledge. Not Uncommon Knowledge, she was on Firing Line with Margaret Hoover. That is a profound ignorance. It requires humility to fix that ignorance. Unfortunately, the left doesn't have that humility, and I think the way that we conservatives can reach them is by asking questions. Not by, if you just go straight out and attack them all the time, if you're constantly just beating that drum, you're probably not going to change their minds. You might change other people's minds in the audience, but you're not going to change their minds because you are playing into their pride. You're giving their pride a reason to assert itself. If you ask with some humility these simple questions, like, well, what's your evidence that the world's going to end in 12 years? What's your evidence that all the children are going to die? If you're worried that all the children are dying, what about abortion? Just simple questions. I think there's an easier way to reach them. If you enjoyed that video, honestly, even if you didn't enjoy that video, please hit the like button so that the rest of the YouTubes knows that our content is the best content out there.